and welcome back to my channel, and welcome to another potluck wrap up where I pick my book straight out of this teapot and tell you what I've been reading over the last few months, and I hope that the books are more recent so that I don't forget things, but also that I can summarise them quickly enough not to waste your time. So we're going to get straight into it. I'm going to press go on my timer. Timer is a-going. That was a pretty good one. Last month, not so much, but this one, give these a good old shuffle. I read quite a bit for Gothtober, so I'm hoping I get to talk to you about Gothic books today. That will be fun. But knowing my luck, it probably won't be. So, first book is going to be Even If We Break, which actually is for Gothtober. So, Even If We Break is a YA mystery. It has loads of disability rep. It has loads of LGBTQ rep. It is really, really fantastic at doing that. And even though I only gave this book 4 stars, the more I think about it, the more I think it might need to go up, because I see so often people looking for books with great rep. This book looks at neurodiversity as well as physical disability, and I know that the author, or at least I believe the author, is autistic. So its own voices and great rep in that. And then when it actually comes down to the thriller elements of this book, it pays off. Now, I read a couple of other books that I was going to do for a Final Girls vlog that were not good. They were not good. That vlog is not coming. Like, I'm really sorry, like, it's just not happening. Those books were not good. One of the books was Good Girls Die First, and that looked at a group of kids on an island killing each other off, basically, and I didn't even finish it. I DNF'd it. It's not good. Even If We Break set the bar really high, and I read this after it, so it's not even like I read this and then couldn't go straight into the next book. I read that book, it was a bad book, then I read this book and was like, this is what that book was trying to do. This book was trying to pit people up against each other and failed. And for those of you that are watching, and I know you're watching because I love that you comment and tell me you're watching, that like D&D, this has D&D rep in it as well. Which seems like such a little thing, but it's such a wholesome nerdiness that brings all these characters together, and then that is fractured, right? So the premise is essentially you've got 5 friends that are going up to this cabin. They're going to play this role-playing game, except this time it's going to be slightly different. They're going to get more, it's going to be more immersive, and they're actually going to walk around the house and try and solve this mystery, except then people start dying, and they know that it can only be one of their friends. So they're trying to work out who that is. It's really, really dark. It has some really like genuinely tense scenes, and it's really cleverly written because it does balance all the characters nicely. They are not nice people. That's not to say they deserve to die, but they are not nice people. So it's really interesting seeing them kind of confront their own truth and be honest with their friends. And some of them, that honesty is harder to deal with than others. Some of them have addiction issues, others are dealing with trauma at home. Like there's loads of different things. There's quite a few trigger warnings for this, so I will put those down in the description down below as well. But I really, really enjoyed it. I thought it was definitely worth my time, and I was really pleasantly surprised. I know it can be a bit of a booktube darling. Some people really, really love this book. Others haven't even tried it, so I didn't want to go into this and not like it. So I think going in with low expectations off the back of the last one may have helped, but this book definitely stands on its own, and I really, really enjoyed it, and I would absolutely recommend it if you've not yet picked it. And if you're worried that when a readathon comes up that you don't have a book that has great rep in it, this will be my recommendation, or one of my recommendations going forward for great disability rep. Yes, I did spend a whole 4 minutes talking about one book. We're not hitting 10 again today. That's not happening. We're not hitting 10. I can tell you for nothing. The next book is going to be For the Wolf. Okay, now this is one of those books that did not understand the assignment. I was promised a Red Riding Hood retelling that was going to be Gothic, that was going to be dark, was going to be sexy, it was going to be like angsty YA, and it was none of those things. I don't know who told writers that if you talk about blood a lot, that's enough to make it dark and spooky. It isn't. There is absolutely no tension built up in this book whatsoever, sexual or otherwise. The main character, Eamon, is just kind of like, is in like the main love interest, Eamon, is just kind of sad all the time, and I don't find that sexy. I don't find sadness sexy. I don't know if that's a hot take, but it just wasn't it for me. The one redeeming element of this that did keep me reading was that there are 2 sisters in this, and basically the first daughter is for the throne and the second daughter is for the wolf, and the wolf is essentially this mystical creature that lives within the woods, that has captured kings or gods or whatever, and basically the daughters are a sacrifice to him. Except you learn pretty much straight away that that is not entirely true. The myth has been reinterpreted in a way that isn't helpful, that the wolf is trying to save the wood and the wood is trying to absorb power to keep itself alive, to keep these like horrible demons at bay. And you learn that like pretty much straight away. Like she goes into the woods and turns out, oh, I'm actually not stuck here. And from that moment it kind of lost its Red Riding Hood element and very much became a Beauty and the Beast retelling, in that you have this beautiful girl who falls in love with the monster, except he's not a monster, he's like actually quite a nice guy. And he's a total soft boy. He's a total soft boy. He's not even a himbo because he's not stupid. He just, you know, deals with things very much on his own. And I just really didn't like that. But the other perspective of the sister that is going for the throne is really dark, it's really mysterious, and it sets up a really interesting premise for the second book, and it very much feels like a villain origin story. So I really liked that bit, but it was not enough to redeem it enough for me to actually read the next book. I'm not interested. I was really disappointed. It just felt like every other word was either moss or blood, and it just, when you get to the point where you're like, okay, I don't care, enough of the description, like let's move on with the story, and then the story isn't going anywhere either, that was really hard. I just, yeah, overall it was a massive disappointment, and I think it's even bigger disappointment because it's off the back of being another pre-order that I was really excited for that then just fell completely flat for me. So yeah, if you like Daddy LaRue, give it a go. Next. Oh no, it's August. Oh, okay. Oh no, that's fine. Okay, yeah, fine. Okay, fine. For a second then I panicked because I was like, that was ages ago. Am I going to remember anything about this book? Yes. Okay, this was everything. This was everything I needed it to be and more. So this is a YA urban fantasy about two sisters who have spent their entire lives training to kill dragons, right up until the younger sister actually discovers a dragon and becomes soul bonded with it, and basically they can feel each other's feelings, they can hear each other's thoughts, and therefore she doesn't want to kill this dragon because he's become part of her and she's become part of him. Her sister kind of goes on this like villain origin story that is just so expertly done, whilst she is now trying to protect the dragon. And it's just brutal, but like it's so clever. There's so many twists with the magic. I love that the parents are not absentee in this. Like they're away for a large chunk of it, but they're not absentee parents. And I think sometimes in YA, parents do get neglected quite a lot. So I like that this really played with tropes that I loved, like villain origin stories, like enemies to lovers, like platonic friendships, you know, additional stuff like dealing with exes, all those other like real YA drama-y tropes, without overindulging in them, without making it like cheesy or a bit shit really. And it was just a really fun read, and it was really exciting. The action scenes were really impactful. I understood the choreography. I don't know if you're like this, but sometimes if a lot of things are happening, if like a lot of people are fighting, I have no idea what's going on because it's too much for my little brain to cope with. So I really liked that it's a clean slate with the choreography. The dialogue is on point. Like it was just a really fun read. It's a really well written book. It's got LGBTQ rep. It's a bi main character, and it's obviously an author of colour and own voices, and it's just wonderful. It's just wonderful. I really enjoyed it, and it's nice to see dragons making a comeback, because I felt like this could have so easily been some kind of werewolf book, but it didn't need to be, or a vampire book, and it didn't need to be. So loved this, excellent work. Next is going to be this one. Oh, Championess. This is a graphic novel that I read as an arc on NetGalley, and basically it's a historical fiction about a young girl who wants to be a boxer, and she's a bit of a brawler. She's like fighting in pubs and stuff, but she wants to be taken seriously as a boxer. But it also looks at her childhood as an Indian girl living in Victorian Britain and how fucking brutal that is. And I really liked it. The art style was not my favourite, but I think that's just because like little things, like nothing major, it was just wasn't my favourite. And I think I've been quite spoilt with the graphic novels that I've read recently that have had really beautiful like art styles, like Saga and Rat Queens and things like that, and even the Harley Quinn one that I've read recently that is just absolutely beautiful. I think this just wasn't it for me art-wise. Story-wise, it was a really clean narrative. It was really interesting. It looked at both introspective and outward conflict. The main characters were all really empathetic. I thought it was a really great read. I thought it was a really interesting read, and it was a little bit of everything that I enjoy with the historical fiction. An absolute badass main character who's not going to take shit from anybody. Loved that. Looking at like the family bonds and racism and things like that. It was a great read. It was a really great read. It is available via Waypoint and has been pretty much since I read it, because I actually really liked it, and I did obviously read it for my Clear Up Your NetGalley thing, which I need to do again because I also need to clean that up. But I really liked it, so what a great way to wrap that one up again. It was fun. I really enjoyed that. I don't own a copy. I might purchase myself a copy even though I've already read it, but I liked it. Okay, next is Lost to the Night. This was an audiobook I listened to on Scribd about a young woman who falls in love with a vampire and then has sex with him in a park. And it's everything you expect it to be. It's set in the Georgian era, so it feels like Bridgerton mixed with vampire porn, so that was fun. It was a really light read. I gave it 3 stars. It wasn't anything special. I just needed to tick off some more books, and it was like 3 hours via audiobook. It wasn't bad. It had an interesting like dynamic to the vampirism, but not a series I'll continue unless I really, really have to. So it's a thing that exists. Okay, the first one I'm going to look at is Homebody by Rupi Kaur. Now this is a collection of poetry which looks at femininity, sex and sexual assault, and coming to terms with your body again. I didn't like Honey and Bees, or whatever it's called. It just wasn't the collection for me. This was. I really, really enjoyed this. Obviously, I've talked about this before, that sexual assault is a triggering subject for me. So I think when I see it in poetry, there's just something far more soothing about it and a lot more cathartic with regards to reading this, because I found this with the Halsey poetry as well, which looks at very similar topics, that actually having it in that, written in that way, I find it far more accessible, and it's a really important topic to read about, so I find it as poetry a lot easier to read, and a lot more soothing and cathartic. I'm kind of like repeating myself now, but I really, really enjoyed this. I thought it was beautifully crafted. It was I do like poetry, so it was nice to kind of see some good poetry in that as well, and yeah, really, really enjoyed that. Good work. I'm going to be short and sweet with that one. There's not a lot I can say about going into like specifics about poems and things like that. So if you like poetry, definitely give it a go. I thought it was beautiful. And then the other one that I picked up, that apparently I've decided to scrunch up rather than actually open, was The Likes of Prague. This is one of the ones that I was nervous about because I could see it still sitting in my pile. I read this a few months ago. And I did this as a buddy read with Hannah from Bookworm's Feast on Instagram and Lizzie as Elf, Lizzie from BookTube, and I just didn't like it. I thought it was going to be a really fun look at vampirism and looking at like Victorian vampirism, slightly different themes, different country, foreign setting, but the writing style was so boring. And I know that for Hannah and Lizzie, the way the Wisp works, which is like this like magical creature that kind of starts the whole narrative off, redeemed it for them at the end. Didn't redeem it for me. I thought it was so boring. I was so disappointed, and I'm really sorry to Lizzie and Hannah that I picked such a boring book for us to buddy read, because it was so pants. Oh god, it's such a shame, because I like vampires and I like historical fiction, but the main character was just such a drip, and because the other characters were so much more interesting, spending so much time with him became a chore, and I just didn't want to read it. And I'm not gonna lie, if it hadn't been for that we were buddy reading it, I probably would have DNF'd pretty early on. It was just boring. It was so boring. So again, if you liked Addie LaRue, give it a go. Okay, next is going to be The Haunting of Evelyn Jones. Okay, so I do have somewhere The Witching of Evelyn Jones, because I'm still working on that one. But The Haunting of Evelyn Jones is the first in a trilogy about a young girl called Evelyn Jones. It is a middle grade mystery that I absolutely adored. I thought this was great. It had great tension. It's a classic ghost story. I don't know what it is about middle grades and the way they write ghost stories, but it's just, they get me every time. When I read Uncle Montague's Tales last year with Gavin, that was really spooky and really hit me where it hurt. This one did as well. Like, it was so cleverly done. I really liked the main character. I thought she was really interesting as a protagonist. I liked all the friends she made along the way. I really liked the portrayal of her Aunt Lillian, because Aunt Lillian starts as this really cold, judgy woman, as so many middle grades do. So many middle grades, and specifically ghost stories, have that particularly judgy character, but then she completely subverts it by warming to everyone at the end and being far more pleasant, and just not necessarily learning to be a nice person, because she's been a nice person from the start. It's just that she's incredibly cold, and going through all this has actually warmed her to people and allowed her to let her guard down a little bit because she cares about people, and it was just really beautifully done. I really liked that. It was a really fun read. It's not particularly long. It's not going to take me long to devour the second one. I'm really enjoying that one as well, but I'm kind of glad I got to wrap this one up because I'm really enjoying both, and you should absolutely go and read them. Like, these are the ones that I'm like, yes, just enjoy, right? Like, it's a good time. It's a good time. Oh no, I can see August. Oh, As I Descended, that's not too bad. Okay, so I've been wanting to wrap this one up for a while as well. Again, I gave this 3.5 to 4 stars. I really enjoyed this. I read it around the same time that I read If We Were Villains, and I don't know if you remember, I obviously wrapped up If We Were Villains earlier on and said that this one is very similar. This has disability rep, this has LGBTQ rep, it has great characters of colour in it as well, as far as I remember, because they've got, I think Robin Talley is Latinx, but don't hold me to that. I don't remember. But I know there are Latinx characters in this as well. But essentially, it's a retelling of Macbeth, where instead of them wanting to take over a kingdom, they're trying to take over a school, and they're trying to win this scholarship. And it really looks at kind of the mental and psychological impact of that narrative on those characters. And I really like that it gives us elements of Macbeth that I have definitely thought about in the past but haven't necessarily seen in other renditions of it, of Lady Macbeth's descent into madness, because we don't get to see that in the original play. We do definitely see it in this book. I really enjoyed this. It was very tense. It was very spooky. It has supernatural elements in it, so you don't know if it's just psychological or psychological and supernatural. It has a really nice balance of both. It's a really fun read. It would have been perfect for Gothtober, but I kind of already read it. I certainly would recommend it, even if I don't highly rate it. I thought it was a really great read. So if you're looking for something to read, having read If We Were Villains, and you're like, I want something along the same lines, I would definitely go with this one. It very much understands how Shakespeare's plays have that subtext, and it definitely leans into the subtext, so I think you'll enjoy that. If you enjoy that, you'll enjoy this. And I have 50 seconds left, so let's be super quick. I'm literally watching the time countdown. So Mexican Gothic, that's so unfair. That's so unfair. I loved Mexican Gothic. It was so beautiful. I've been sleeping on this book. I literally saw this in so many Gothtober TBRs last year and was like, I obviously need to give it the time of day because people are really excited for it. Oh my god, it's so clever. The psychological twists, the supernatural elements again, the mixture of magic and science. You've got all kinds of different elements. We're literally like counting down the last 10 seconds now. You've got like loads of different elements, like you've got the aristocracy, you've got elitism. It's a perfect Gothic book. It is perfection. There isn't a single thing I would change about this, not a hair on this book's head. It is so good. And if you like a classic thriller, or you like a horror, or you just like a book that has great female character rep, go for it. It's so beautiful. It's so beautifully written. I loved this book, and that is my wrap up for this month. So I hope you enjoyed this video. Let me know in the comments down below which of these books you're now most excited to read, and other than that, have a nice day.